I think that for resisting till this time, so and thank you to our invitees, Nuno and Tiago. I think that we're going to have hell of a row, I hope, through one of the most interesting businesses that I think, for me, coming from the old school investment banking, tokenization of real world assets. Not an easy, probably a very, let's say, common topic or very controversial topic, but we think we're going to see at the end of this panel. As a first, I would say that maybe I would ask you guys just for a small presentation. I'm sure that we may have someone on the audience that still doesn't know you, maybe one or two persons, but maybe I would start, Nuno, for you, and a small brief introduction, and then we will go for...
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to repeat myself, because yesterday I've already presented, and I believe the persons are the same in the audience. But I'm a lawyer in this area. I'm a senior associate at Quatro Casas, an international law firm. I try to work as much as I can in these specific areas, emerging technologies. I work a lot with Web3 companies that are based in Portugal or outside, so I've been doing a lot of work in this area. And as a president of the Portuguese Blockchain Association, I'm also trying to, and I've been doing a lot of lobbying activity to promote this industry and to further develop it here in Portugal.
Go, Tiago, please, also.
So, I'm 44, I'm Portuguese, I'm a second-time tech entrepreneur. I'm passionate about technology, about open information, about transparency. That's my main motivation in building companies. I think this team is really amazing, and I think will change society forever, because real estate, for example, as a real world assets, have a big impact, one of the major impacts in the national or international economies. So I think we will try to find
sure.
Better solutions for everybody.
Let's start with that. So I think I will ask. We will go later for your experience and this tremendous use case of real estate. So, but I probably will ask Nuno. How do you see this framework going on? So, for example, I'm from the old school, so I remember talking with elder people in investment banking, and in the stock markets, they would say papers, and I'm the guy that went through the electronic trading and so on. So I tend to see this as, well, this is generation 3 of asset management going into the virtual world, and we had a huge of a discussion today with carbon credits, something that I already did, it's also in investment banking, and cross-border things, regulation, challenges. How do you see this all in terms of an industry representative as a leader?
It's a very interesting topic, and it's good that we can discuss this for a broader audience. From the beginning, I think calling it real-world assets is a little bit misleading, because, well, as I see it, the other types of assets that we already have going on blockchain, they are real-world as well, because it's the world that we live on. So Bitcoin, everything that is ERC20 that works in the Ethereum network, it's all real-world assets. Well, what we are talking here is the TradFi, or even a little bit more traditional assets that we are used to deal with in the traditional rails outside of blockchain usage. But when we talk about real-world assets, we talk mainly nowadays on the tokenization of financial instruments. That's the biggest use case nowadays, and the idea is to launch or to create this kind of financial instruments that are born already within a blockchain environment, or with the usage of DLTs, which is decentralized ledger technologies, which is a bigger hat to include what we call a blockchain as well. So the idea is to launch and to tokenize, to issue this kind of assets already within a blockchain environment or using blockchain technology. This has been done. BlackRock with the company called Securitize is very deep into this. So tokenization of funds, of traditional assets, traditional financial instruments on that side. They have created the BIDL, which is a joke with the HODL part. They have swapped a letter there. It was supposed to be build. They call it BIDL or BIDL. And the idea is to tokenize funds and to allow for more, to democratize
the access, more liquidity,
the access to non-accredited investors, to create more liquidity, to open it up in a bigger scale, and to globalize the access to this kind of investments and assets. In the European Union, I would like to point out that we have, like for 1 year and a half maybe, the DLT pilot regime, which is basically a regulation that was created in order to allow for the usage of blockchain technologies, DLTs, to exempt some of the things that we already had for the financial markets, and to digitize this kind of operations. So instead of having those settlements of D+3 that we are used to have in the traditional financial markets, we can now have D0 to make this kind of settlement. So this regulation brought the opportunity to issue in the primary market financial instruments as stated in Annex 1 of the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, which is basically stocks, bonds, warrants, CFDs, all the things that we already know and are typified in law, describing what is a financial instrument. And this allows for companies that want to create and operate in this market to create MTFs and settlement systems and CSDs, and they can combine everything and be a DLT-operated multilateral trading facility, a settlement system, or a TSCS that combines an MTF and a settlement system in the same market platform. So the idea is to pass from a thing that we had until now that is very paper-intensive and done with a lot of mechanisms that banks and financial institutions use to connect themselves. And the idea was to, with this regulation that is applicable directly to every member state, as to make it possible to have this kind of platforms and issue this kind of financial instruments directly since point zero, since its beginning, its inception, to make primary market issuance of these financial instruments already on blockchain. So this brings a lot of possibilities.
And a lot of challenge also.
And a lot of challenges. Basically the idea here is to, the same rules are applicable that we already have, but the idea is to exempt some of those rules that we had prepared for a traditional financial system and technological layer, and to these types of companies that want to apply for this kind of licenses. They will explain to the regulator, so we will use blockchain in order to be exempt of some requirements that traditional companies had to comply with, because the technology itself already makes it possible. So it's very, very good. And in Portugal, we have a minor change in our Código de Valores Mobiliários, in our laws, internal law that regulates the financial markets and the issuance of these types of financial instruments. And it was just a brief, two brief updates in the law to make it paperless in some areas.
Okay.
So I think it's very useful. The president of ESMA, which is the European regulator for the financial markets or the securities markets, have said that, well, 1 year has passed already and no one has a license yet, because the technological part is really hard to implement and to explain to the regulators how you are going to circumvent or to be exempt from this. We have already one licensed entity. We have a lot of them are pending. In Portugal, I'm helping one company to apply for a license to be a TSS, so an MTF with a settlement system as well. These mechanisms will also include stablecoins, so it will be possible to make settlements already in stablecoins, so you don't need to to use fiat money, non-digitalized fiat money to participate in these markets. So I think this will be a very good opportunity to tokenize real
To
world.
move ahead.
We also have, just to conclude, because this is a very complex and interesting subject, I could talk for hours about this, but just to conclude, there are also other ideas of tokenizing real world assets. Let's say real estate. Like
which is the theme that I think Tiago is ready to jump in. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Like I can pass the ball, but the idea is to create like basically NFT. It's more problematic. It's a little bit more harder to do it, but basically to create an NFT that represents
like a house.
An apartment, a house, or something like that, and transaction that between peers. But that will
but the
be
real estate,
step.
not making this without just to give my 50 cents. The real estate has a lot of challenges. Then I'm going to pass the ball directly to you, Tiago, without, of course, preventing you of discussing some of the points that Nuno raised. But when we talk about real estate market, people tend to look at the traditional sale of a house to live and so on. But there's a huge economy around the real estate. So you can like the sale and leases, these modern things that everybody builds. You have like mortgage, a lot of stuff that some people get. When I talk with people that are around regulation, also is a bit scared of, because they see, well, you're going to tokenize it. You're just like building a Lehman Brothers 2.0 or something, and. So this is my challenge to you. So information is actually very important. We saw in the credit crunch, it was about information, also real and credible information. So when you have been working a lot to build like a sort of Bloomberg or Reuters in terms of data veracity. So explain us a bit about your experience on that, and if you want.
Let's start first. I think there are a lot of real world assets. Of course, I'm mainly focused on real estate, and there's a lot of possibilities that we can just start experimenting. I think this is a little bit far away to have a secondary market, something like the bonds and the things that people are tokenizing right now, and I think we'll open infinite, I don't know, but possibilities to do it. It just, I think in my head, it's just to hire a lot of analysts to just explore all the possibilities. So in terms of my thing, my motivation, again, I start every time with my motivation, is that I see a huge problem on the housing markets around the world at the urban centers. As I said yesterday, I think the model is obsolete. We need to think and to change the paradigm. I think we need to start here. What we are trying to do in Unlock It, and we are working with Nuno, because I'm an innovator, and the innovator thinks everything is possible, and we need lawyers to tell us that, to put boundaries.
That old thing that never changed.
Yeah, to put some boundaries of the law, and I learn a lot with Nuno, is first, we start, I don't know if it's the right term or not, but for people, I think it's easy to understand. We are tokenizing contracts, we are tokenizing identities. So what is this tokenizing? It's put data that is in the PDF in a token. Because it's really easy and more secure and cost effective to exchange a token than a PDF or a paper. That's the first thing, I think. So BlackRock, what are doing is just to have a more cost-effective platform, and then to open to the mainly investors around the world. Let me tell you one thing, one stat, that is in 2019, the MIT wrote that 93% of the people in the world that wanted to invest in real estate could not afford it. Okay, because these funds are completely closed to them, to us in reality. So I think it's a good step for the society first, because real estate is like the mainly asset where people can earn money in a stable way. And so I think this is a huge opportunity for the society to create another business model on top of the house. What we are doing, we decided to start by the rental side, because I think the legislation is much more, is not so hard and not so tight. And we start by creating a smart rent, and right now we are discussing it. So we can create financial instruments on top of that smart contract. Imagine I rent location in Estrela, Lisboa. You are charging like 10K per month, and the landlord needs the money right away. So we need to find a financial model, so this could be a really good incentive for the landlords and for the investors. Okay, we can give another example. So you want to develop a real estate project, you don't have the money, so this will be a nice way to get the money, like a real estate crowdfunding. What is the difference? And I will close my first intervention here. Is that you have all the strong authentication process inside of it. You have the way of managing the real-time payments in a way that is much more cost-effective, and then you are creating a way of people really start trading, start staking. Then you have an infinite possibilities, so they can earn more money in that kind of financial instrument. So, if we are talking about tokenizing a building, yeah, it's possible, but legislation right now are not prepared. In the United States, what they are doing is that they create an instrument, and then they put houses on that financial instrument, and what they are doing is they fractionalize the instrument. Yeah. So this is not my goal. My goal is to go to the government and to fractionalize the register. I think there's the solution. Yeah, it's much more harder, but it's cool to be much more harder, because the gain in the end will be much more, I think, cool for the society and, of course, for myself.
Yeah, I think a big challenge. So, but picking up on your comments, so you're on the thrive of having a spot where you get like a lot of credibility on the information that it's gained. So that's very good, because we tend to complicate. We guys that come from the financial world, we tend to complicate and build new products, and sometimes things break down. And this would be a bit my challenge on Nuno, using your code as a lawyer. Say, just how balanced is this evolution between regulation, legal adaptation, and the advance that the financial industry, I'm sure that when it will wear and have all of these tools under their hands can do, and perverse, let's say, a bit the way that tokenization can move on and be a benefit. I don't know if I was...
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, to summarize it, it's to understand if the legislation or the regulations or the legal frameworks that we have right now are adapted or can be used to...
Can they compete with the predator type that usually banks tend to have to create new innovative products?
No, well...
I've been there, so and it's very fast when they want.
Yeah, so I can give the example on, not talking about other types of tokenizations, but let's say, for example, in Portugal, our notions of what a document is and civil contracts and civil agreements between parties is very broad. So the legislator in 1966 had already a great vision in that sort of understanding. So basically a document can be anything, like a rock or an hologram, anything where parties agree or write things on, and that includes obviously smart contracts or NFTs or anything that you can write stuff in, and where parties can agree on to the things that are already written in that specific document. It can be a digitalized document, it can be anything, basically. A piece of paper that, a towel, a restaurant towel in paper. It doesn't really matter. There are, of course, some kind of contracts that need some formalities and need to be validated. And that's the tricky part here. But besides that, there's a lot of liberty in contractual form for that purpose.
You can explain the difference between a Ricardian contract and a 1% automated contract? I think it's important.
Yeah, that's important to mention. Thank you. Ian Grieg was a programmer, a little bit like Nick Szabo, who invented the term, the idea of smart contracts. Ian Grieg also developed the idea of Ricardian contracts, which is very cool. So it's basically a real world, let's call it like that, to be within the panel. Real world contracts that were with tags and meta tags and meta words that could be self-executed by just reading those kind of contracts. So it's basically like having a vending machine, which is basically a purchase and sale agreement that you are celebrating with the owner of the vending machine, whoever puts the Coca-Colas and the ships there. You are basically celebrating and concluding and executing a sales and purchase agreement, or in Portuguese, contrato de compra e venda. You put the money, it gives you a Coca-Cola or something like that. So it's a purchase and sale agreement, and it's fully automatized. You are interacting with a machine. So basically with smart contracts, it's the same, but it works in the internet. So you put something there, it gives you something back. Inputs, outputs, it's automated. What we could try to do here is use other types of assets and other types of contracts and agreements and use the same requirements that we have for this kind of investments to verify the origin of the funds, to verify who are the persons, QIC'd persons, everything else. That could also be done on-chain and be and automatized. So let's say in a renting contract, a renting agreement, if the parts are duly identified with the legal mechanisms that are necessary, you can automatize a lot of things. So basically the parts will agree, define the terms of the agreement. Everything is a little bit of a standard and the templates. So even lawyers use the same templates every now and then, so that's not a problem. And you basically put, in a sort of a Ricardian contract, you put that agreement on, and some things can be automatized. The problem, or the problems are, well, let's say the real world execution and verification of some premises. The part of assigning some kind of right and being paid for that right is being transmitted. In this case, it's the right to use the place or use the house that you have paid the rent for. That's the easy part. What can go wrong if the person doesn't pay the rent? This is what we have to work on. So the real world verification, let's say with oracles, with some kind of outside world verification. We can use Internet of Things to verify some kind of sensors that gives inputs to these smart contracts in the form of oracles. There's a lot of things to be done, but I think the agreement itself, where parties define the terms of the agreement and then agree upon, and it establishes a contract, can be done with the usage of smart contracts. This is not a direct tokenization of anything. That's another subject, but I wanted to pick up on Unlockit proof of concept and project that they are developing. I think we also have an example here in Portugal of Limpid. They are working a lot, and they have already a lot of, I think it's use cases now, it's not proof of concept. They have a lot of use cases where they tokenize horses. You can invest in horses and whatever. So it's basically picking up on rights that we have contractually or any kind of right and tokenizing rights. That's the idea of the real world assets tokenization, is tokenizing some kind of rights. The financial instruments and the financial world is easy to tokenize because it's basically when you buy a share of a company, you get the representation of the shares that you are buying, so that's easy because it's already a document that you are tokenizing. You're just creating a replication of that document and putting it in blockchain, so it's basically the same. So
okay. Yeah, sure.
Rights and obligations, of course.
Yeah, of course. When I say rights, it's that's the counterpart.
Please do go through it, Tiago. I wanted to hear a bit also on this, and because we're all running for our goal, but let me leave you also with the challenge. Of course, how big can this be? Of course, in your use case, you have, I'm sure, some metrics, and I would also, in terms of real estate,
let's be clear.
How do you think?
Let's be clear about, because I'm really honest on this. I think it's really important for builders to be honest with the audience. We are building right now proof of concepts. Imagine this project that I'm working with Nuno right now, that is our lawyer, is a project that I'm working with Miguel that made the first keynote here yesterday for almost 2 years. So we had like 3 master theses on this, and a lot of work that we put, and a lot of study, and I read a lot of I could not say that I read 100% of the scientific literature that was written about this topic, but I read a lot. And it's everything will end in the legislation, in the way that we can afford to be accepted with our proof of concepts. Let me give me an example, because you said one thing that I think is really important. Why I'm fighting like hell to have 100% true data set? Because that is the route for tokenizing and automatizing everything. Because if you don't have a single source of truth, nothing in the end will work. That's the problem of the financial system. Imagine the way that people are evaluating our houses. A minute of silence, please. Because it's really awkward. It's not 100% analytical. They do not have 100% of the data. They are doing this. And then pray. And of course, then we have crises that nobody understands. And we need to stop here. So tokenization is a really cool concept. I think we have a lot of iteration to do. But in my case, what I want to do is just to launch the first rental contract with the first blockchain portal for the rental market here in Portugal and Europe. Why? Because frauds are rising like hell. There are a lot of students arriving in Portugal and they do not find the house that they rent. So we need trust here. And I think trust is the first variable for having a real secondary markets, even if it's horses, houses, metal, gold, or another crazy idea that someone could have.
Yeah, sure. And actually, okay, bold move. We were actually also listening to our friend Rodrigo from For Oceano. He also was explaining a bit that before building the building, we should have a good mapping of these carbon rights, and I guess that it's more or less the same note that you leave, because if you have blockchain tokenization is about the reliable and transparent information. Of course, you need to have transparent evaluation. Okay?
You have to start by the basics. You have to start by the basics. You see, if you do not achieve the basics, you cannot achieve anything.
Yeah.
That's why I think we are a different project. But in the end, right now, like I said yesterday, we are a Web2 company. We are building the way that we believe that our decentralization will arrive. But that it depends on company for company.
Let me just, before we go for some Q&A, then let the audience share also some of their thoughts with us. Nuno, any comments on these thoughts? How big, how fast will tokenization grab, and if it has, do you think if it has like a potential to change the financial industry, for example?
Yeah, well, everyone says that everyone that is deeply invested in the technology, let's say, and other uses of the technology beyond pure speculation, so buying low and selling high, which is the second biggest use case of blockchain nowadays. The first one being the stablecoins, which is an already use case, already proven, with a lot of work there. But everyone says that this is the next big thing for the next 10, 15 years. So the real world assets tokenization will be a way to use, well, it's just to migrate the traditional systems. Most of them are still in COBOL, which is a very outdated. Anyone that programs knows what COBOL is, but it's one of the first language programming language that was invented, and it's still used in the TradFi industry. So a lot of banks still use this. All the programmers already died, so they are having a lot of trouble.
I still so know a few.
Yeah, they're already having a lot of trouble migrating from those old systems into the systems that we all currently use. So passing all these systems into blockchain will take a little bit further. And the idea of doing this and passing or talking about the tokenization of real-world assets, just using another layer of technology to make everything much smoother, much faster, much global. So it's basically like using the internet to allow for the access for everyone to have access to these kind of instruments. And I think that's very positive, and it will have a big impact in everyone's financial lives.
Okay, so thank you, and thank you for your contributions. I think we'll